Hey guys, welcome into the webinar. As everyone's getting on, I'm going to introduce Erin, who I did not know that we were just like sisters. We're around the same age, and turns out she likes 90s and 2000s music like me, specifically boy bands. So we got tickets one night in Philadelphia. We were there for a work trip and we saw O-Town.
It, it was something. Let me tell you,
And
it's like,
BB
yeah, when
and
they
Ryan
say like,
Cabrera, right?
yeah, oh yeah, but he
And
had,
LFO, the one remaining
yeah,
member.
when the saying like how Stella got her groove back, like they did not, they need to get their groove back. It was not
Some
it.
people should just retire.
Yeah,
They don't need to keep singing. But I don't
yeah,
know.
for sure.
I had so much fun with you.
Oh, so did I. I
Um,
had a blast. I had a blast. And
so that was
you're doing the thing. You're doing the sphere with
I'm doing
Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys Sphere in July. I'm so excited for that one.
Oh my God, gonna be amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be great. As you guys know, our chat is always open, so please hop in there and tell us how you are, tell us where you're from, and we are going to get started with today's webinar, today's podcast style interview with my students are broke. Your students are broke. Everyone's students are broke. And what's funny, Erin, is we say like students, it's really like staff. It's kind of like everyone. Can we just like let me say those questions. Introduce yourself really quick. Tell everyone who you are, other than an O-Town
Yeah.
mom.
Yes, other than boy band through and through, always have, always will be. My name is Erin Kuhn Bhansali, and I am president of Qnity and Qnity for Schools. So Qnity is our business division, right? So that's where we work with really salon, spa, and med spa owners and leaders, really focused on helping them from a business standpoint create greater financial sustainability as a business owner, right? Oh, hey Alexa, from right in Philly with me. I love it. From Jean Madeline, fantastic. Um, and then about 3.5 years ago, we launched Qnity for Schools. And Qnity for Schools is strictly, we work with schools because we noticed such a gap in the financial acumen, not just of the staff members in those salon spas and med spas that we were working with, but also even up to their owners, right? Like I will never forget some of the experiences that we've had where it was like, if we're really going to change the trajectory of someone's career and what is possible, we have to start while they're still in school
Yeah.
to change the entire industry. So that's what I do. We also do a bunch of data through our Qnity Institute. But really just hoping to serve the beauty and wellness sector as a whole with greater financial tools and resources, which Jen, I know you're also super passionate about because you also have your own financial transformation, right? Which we've chatted about.
Yeah, I was actually on Erin's podcast where I chatted about how I went through Dave Ramsey, like saving money and paying off
Mhm.
our house and doing all the crazy things. I grew up with not a lot of money.
Mhm.
My parents didn't save any money for me for college. They didn't buy me a car. Like I had to do I moved out when I was 18. So having to do everything on my own, I feel like I relate a lot to a Cosmos student.
Mhm.
That really is the case of a lot of them. Of course, a lot of them are single moms
Right.
which we're also going to chat about. But Erin, the first time I had heard of Qnity, it was actually a few years ago at an ACS conference, and
Mhm.
y'all had done a presentation based on research
Mhm.
on the salaries, the actual salaries of cosmetologists working in the field. That's the first time I had ever even heard of you guys.
Mhm.
And wow, that was a fascinating study. Can everyone find that? Where can they access that?
Yeah, why don't we do, I can just send the report to everyone after this call if that works.
Awesome.
I think you said your team member is going to share it with me. So we'll just send that report. Full disclosure, it's a 90-page report. And the presentation that Jen was sharing was, obviously we know schools, you guys have been put through the ringer. And Jen, just to clarify, we have leaders, educators, kind of everyone from schools here, right?
Yeah, lots of times directors are on here in
Okay.
mission and also not just in the beauty school realm, but in
Oh,
vocational
love.
schools in general. But yeah,
Okay, perfect. So schools in general, private schools have been put through the ringer, right, on all these regulatory threats. And a lot of times what it boils down to is data or lack thereof in this case of what a potential earnings could be in their craft of choice. And on the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, at least for the beauty and wellness sector, where our research is what I'm really familiar with, it's very low. I mean, we're talking like $16 an hour, showing that the average beauty and wellness provider makes less than poverty level wages, right? And so we really took to um, prove it wrong through data because we've seen it by analyzing W-2 earnings, right? So that doesn't address the solo sector. That's a whole other element. But we could then go back and we now have over 35,000 W-2 data points, which is literally you can't argue with W-2 incomes, right? If anything,
Sure.
they could be lower because tips weren't reported, but we worked with employers to provide those, and all of those had a very high rate of tip compliance. And we found if an average hairdresser, at least let's look at that example, worked a 40-hour work week, which is another situation. Not everybody's working full time because, to your point, single mothers, they might not want to work full time. That might be the exact reason why they choose this
That's
career.
why they chose the
Is
career. Exactly.
it's
So they can work full
flexibility.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're boiling it down. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics is looking at comparable to a 40-hour work week, right? Which is not. And they don't factor in how many hours they work. So anyways, if they worked a 40-hour work week, the average salary would be $84,000 a year.
Mm.
That's average, right? That is substantially
Bananas. It's a
it's
lot
yeah.
different than $16 an hour.
Correct. Correct. And so that's what we do on the data side, and we continue to do studies around that realm to really show, but also not just society and policymakers, but also future students and support systems, right? Like that's a very different conversation with a student and a parent of a student. If you say, hey, if you work 40 hours a week, on average, you can make 84 grand. That's
Yeah.
not the high performers, right? And so it's just that's one of the things we do on the data side as well too.
I love the data point of that. I love that you brought that up. I also do want to talk a little bit later about the wages and even from an admission standpoint
Mhm.
and how we can say that with still remaining compliant. I know there are
Right.
things that, admissions really has to be careful on what we say. We can't oversell a program. We can't promise employment and that sort of thing. But data is data. And, you guys have that research. So I'm really grateful you're going to be sharing that.
Mhm.
Shout out to Chelsea in the comments who also follows Dave Ramsey's baby step program, which again, we did for years. So let's talk about the current state of the economy.
Mm.
Because the past few years have been rough inflation wise, the price of groceries, the price of everything. And a lot of
Yeah.
our students, Erin, they are single moms
Mhm.
or they are having to give up full-time jobs to come to school full-time and maybe
Mhm.
work part-time. I mean, there's a lot of students that live that paycheck to paycheck. We know that in admissions because
Mhm.
usually there's an application fee. Sometimes
Mm.
it's anywhere from 25 to $100. And you'd be shocked how many students don't even have that. They don't even have the $25 for the application fee. And often it's waived or they're asked to pay it at least before they start school. So, what are you seeing as far as let's just talk about the current state of the economy and what we can expect as far as the financial situation of the students who enroll?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's such a, and what you said to your, like, I really get goosebumps when I think about that because I know, you and Jen, I've also lived on and been broke in my past too, right? And it's not fun to do that. It's also really challenging if you're providing for other people. So first and
Yeah.
foremost, I really feel for those who are struggling because the reality is most people are struggling. We're seeing an economic landscape like we have not seen for a very, very long time. And so, I think there's, take some of the political things that are happening right now and what that is going to do to our economy. But also just looking at AI, right? And so when you think about it from a bigger perspective, McKinsey reported that in the next 10 years, there's going to be 400 to 800 million people who will lose their jobs due to AI. Okay. So that is like a global economic shift that's happening, right? So I want to start off with the positive side because I think in an industry where you have to have a craft that is physical, right? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people are talking about robots doing hair and nails and all those things. And sure, that could be something. But I do think that that is very positive from a school standpoint and on an enrollment side because there is a point of difference, right? In terms of going to a program where you can fast track your career to make an income. So comparative to some of the other people that are struggling, right? People that are going to 4-year degree programs, I mean, a lot of those traditional jobs, they're going to be eliminated, right?
Sure.
So there's going to be a lot of people that are struggling. And the challenge too is that the beauty industry is pretty susceptible to consumer sentiment, right? So like, you've sees where it's like, oh, like how much do I tip hairdressers and things like that. So I think that's one component, but how you also help schools and students that are actually in your program, it's challenging, but at the same time, you know, you're not when you're in a program, you're going to a program to elevate your career set or your skill set so you can eventually make money, right? I do not know many people in college unless there's family wealth or it's a career changer or there's a supportive husband or partner
Yeah,
involved where the student isn't struggling for a time being, right? That's kind of just you take a step back so you can elevate a skill and start to have a quick path to earning. So I think in some cases it is normal to have challenges while you're in school. And I think the difference is some of the things that we're seeing right now is just the cost of living is pretty untenable right now. And then,
absolutely.
yeah. And
Yeah,
I,
but also, Erin, like we know that at the end they get a license and they can go to work.
correct.
But for the year they're in school, that stress impact is bigger than we think. And
Yeah, for
the
sure.
last month on our webinar, I had Steve Reese with Pivot Point that had recently done some research on this very thing. And then they had done a whole research on the mental health of students. So our 1 hour conversation was on the mental health and well-being of our students and staff. And the top stress factor was finances. That was
Hmm.
the top stress factor. And
Yeah.
so it's one thing to tell a student, listen, everyone struggles in school, like financially. It's going to
Hmm.
hurt. We get it.
Hmm.
But then at the end, you're going to, you get to go to work. That doesn't solve it now. That doesn't help them now. I mean, they don't have money now. Um, how are we seeing schools how are we seeing, at least from the student standpoint, this spilling over into other aspects, whether it's friendships or being able to be confident at school or them doing their course load or them even showing up? How much impact can there be, when we enroll students like this who are really struggling financially?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is absolutely a total mental health implication, right? There's a new field around financial therapy. It's like a new field in the form of therapy, but you're seeing more and more financial therapists pop up all the time. And because it is, there's the challenges and the stories that you bring in, and the myths and traps you believe about money. But then there's just also the very real reality of living paycheck to paycheck and not knowing if you're going to be able to feed your child. That is an immense pressure that goes beyond just financial, right? That is like a survival, that is a everything induced so much fear around
Yeah.
that topic and anxiety. When you can't pay your bills, it's really, really challenging. And look, I wish I had an immediate answer for that, right? I wish I had an immediate answer to solve that for anyone. And for most people, when you're in school, it's to figure out how to get your income up, right? And figure out how to build your income as fast as possible after you graduate, right? But for the immediate time frame, how that shows up in school and things like that. The biggest thing that we've talked about in our curriculum that we do with Money EDU is just having conversations about it, because I think far too many students and educators, by the way, because a big area I see this is with educators who are really struggling as well.
Mhm.
And the reality is when you have conversations about it, right? When you have conversations around the topic of money, it sort of dissolves the sense of like, hey, any myth that you're alone. Because very quickly, when you have that conversation, you're going to pretty much figure out that 95% of the people and students in the room are in the same position, right? And so there is just an immediate dissolving of that like shame factor, right? I think when you hear
Sure.
other people, because I think the shame is
We're
one
all
component.
broke. We're all struggling.
Yes,
Like there's
for
some
sure.
sort of camaraderie around there. And although I'm not expecting a school to fix the finances, and just offer education, they absolutely should be offering resources.
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
So
And I think,
knowing where your local daycares are and calling them and
yep,
seeing if you can, whether it is government assistance or whether there's something that you can do on your side by saying, hey, 80% of our students have kids. Can you offer them a discount?
100%,
What are we
100%.
doing
Yeah.
to break down those barriers?
I think that's a brilliant one, childcare, especially with the dominance of female providers.
Yeah.
Um, and just the fact of like most people leave the workforce because they can't afford childcare. Right now, childcare is now a rich person's benefit. That's what they're
Sure.
saying right now. It's like it is so untenable for the average person. And so that's the challenge with this conversation, Jen, is like there is some real societal issues at play here that
Mhm.
are actually beyond our little locus of control. And one of the things that I think is really important is to understand the unique issues that Gen Zers are facing, right? So 29% of Gen Zers live in poverty, like active poverty right now. Even if not technically at the federal poverty level, the report by United Way found that 40% of Gen Z adults fell into what's considered the asset limited, income constrained employed population. So it's really anyone who earns more than the poverty level, but not be able to actually afford the basics of where they live, right? Then another element from Bank America, almost 50% of Gen Zers between 18 and 27, the oldest Gen Zer right now is 28,
Right.
and you know all about Gen Zers, they rely on assistance from their parents and family. So
Mhm.
50% of people of Gen Z are saying they don't make enough money to live the life they want. That is not beauty industry specific. That is population dynamics here,
And let's
right?
be
So,
honest, it's not that their family is rich. It's not that
oh
they're
yeah,
loaded. Their families are struggling too. They
100%.
just happen to buy a house when interest rates were 3%. Like
Exactly.
they just
Yeah,
happen to find themselves in different circumstances. And unfortunately, Gen Z is not in those circumstances. And I definitely want to talk about curriculum
mhm,
around your money curriculum and all that stuff. But let's look at things from a standpoint of what schools can do that is not curriculum.
for
And I
sure.
I have been preaching this, Erin.
Hmm.
I am appalled when I see some schedules that schools have.
Hmm.
If your only schedule is Tuesday through Saturday full time, you're
Yeah,
a dinosaur. I'm sorry. That is not
I
what
agree.
people want.
I
You're a
agree.
mother. Would you
Yeah,
give up your Saturdays? Are you kidding? I mean, it blows my mind
yeah.
that we think the only schedule someone is going to do is Tuesday through Saturday. Do y'all know how many enrollments you're missing out on? People
Hmm.
don't want to go to school on Saturday. They want to see their kids play soccer. They don't want to have to pay for childcare because
Yeah.
their kids they're having birthday parties, they're going to the pool. I mean, it
Hmm.
blows my mind that we're only offering Tuesday through Saturday full time. We need 3 day schedules. We need part
Oh,
time.
for sure.
We need
Yeah.
Tuesday through Friday. We need
Hmm.
Monday through Thursday. Like we have got to come up with better schedules.
Yeah.
And I think the schools that are doing that today their enrollment isn't hurting. What are you
Hmm.
thinking in that realm, Erin? Sorry to get
You
off my
know,
soapbox. Woo.
no, I love it. I get on a soapbox too, so I hear you. I totally agree with that. And I love what Melinda says. I think PM, and I think there's other, like, I understand from school owner standpoint, like the staffing can be an issue. Nobody doesn't want to work, nobody wants to work the PM shifts. But at the end of the day, especially for career changers and for a lot of people, as we see literal career fields obliterated by AI, we're going to have career changers. And so I think doing it in times where childcare is not necessary is important, but like AM and PM, you still have an issue if you're a stay-at-home mom, right? Like sure, potentially your partner could take the PM shift. So, that's really interesting because I'm not necessarily privy to all of the enrollment cycles in terms of where people are seeing the best wins, but I agree. Schedule flexibility, I think that needs to be I'm incredibly passionate about that. And I think, on my team, everyone is a mom, everyone is a mom besides a couple people. And so it's like really making sure that you enable that flexibility. And to the extent that schools can do it with the resources they have, I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely going to set them apart. And it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do if you're trying to educate and empower many women or female identifying individuals who may or may not be in child rearing. I know many are not, but if that's their choice, um, it's a huge barrier for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with a school and I remember they would advertise their mom schedule. And the mom schedule was 9 to
Love.
I loved their 9 to 2 schedule. It was,
Yeah.
And yes, it's going to take you longer to graduate, and I get that. But people are looking for flexibility, and by the way, we're advertising a flexible career.
Yeah,
Come, beauty
100%.
wellness. You work when you want. Like you work as
Hmm.
much as you want. Don't take off weekends. Don't work weekends. But then we're like, you got to be here from 8 to 5:30 Monday. Tuesday through Saturday. I mean, it's crazy. It's bananas to me how backwards
Hmm.
it is. And so I do love that those conversations are changing. I'm looking in the chat now and I'm seeing some really great
Yeah,
response,
for sure.
right? Like people I think are on to this. So
Hmm.
I think that that's one thing you can do. Um, let's chat about actual budgeting help. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how important, I mean, they're here to learn how to cut hair. Why are we teaching them all these other skills that no one else is going to teach them? Is it
Yeah.
up to a school to teach people how to budget and I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm so glad you asked it that way because I will be honest, and I've thought about like, is it I would love to say, right? We're a curriculum company, we're an education company. I would love to say that we're a nice to have or that we're an essential to have. And I do believe we are. Like, I believe if you are looking at producing graduates that stay in the industry, that can make an income, that are going to be happy alumni, that are going to preach about what they learned in the school, then yes, I believe it is important to do that, especially in a career like this, especially in a career where there's essentially numerous career paths, but there is one single through line through it all. You have to learn how to make money. You're not going into a salaried, comfortable position, right? Where I mean, honestly, really in any program, I would say you'd have to learn how to do it. But this one uniquely, you have to learn sales skills. You have to learn how quickly you can produce. And the biggest thing once they graduate is providers need to learn how fast as possible they can build their client count specifically,
Right.
right? The best thing they need to do is build a book of business. And you don't learn how to build a book of business, right? Like in a traditional career path, in traditional college careers, you're looking at your resume building and how to interview and all that stuff. But this career, you have to know how to make and manage money. So, like, to me, budgeting is one component. And I'll be honest, when you don't have enough resources to pay your bills, it's like budgeting doesn't actually fix the problem, right? It helps for a solution, but the best thing you can do to help someone solve that problem is to get them increasing their income, right? And if it's an educator, through side hustles and through finding, Jen, you have a side hustle. Many people have side hustles. I was also looking at stats about how many people have side hustles. So it's like, with a flexible, how can you increase your income if you're in a position where you can't make basic ends meet? Now, is it the school's responsibility, right? Like, let's just go back to your basic question. Is it the school who already is having challenges with hours, right? Like, they're already being
Sure.
cut. They need to produce people that know how to do a craft. They know how to cut hair. They need to know how to cut hair, massage, give a great facial, all of the things that they need to learn. So it's really interesting because I feel for that question because I'm a business owner too, right? And
Mhm.
I work with school owners and I know how hard it is. I know how hard their job is and how many threats and challenges that they face every single day. So part of me doesn't want to be like, here's another responsibility that you have to do. You have to teach financial literacy. Do I think it's essential for schools and the future of the industry and the future of society to give young people and career changers, particularly in this industry, the skills to make and manage and grow their money? Absolutely.
Mhm.
So I think that was like a halfway answer.
Yeah. But to be clear, and I mean, not to go all Sex in the City, Charlotte York on everyone, but it's not my job to fix your finances. It's not your job to fix the finances of your students,
Yeah.
but it is your job to teach them some skills on how they can do it. And
Yeah.
I really think that's what you're saying is maybe it wasn't 20 years ago, and maybe not even 10 years ago, but with the state of the economy today, and we know what the finances look like of our students, and they're taking out pretty hefty school loans that they're going to have to pay back.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you give them some skills in that area?
Yeah, and also with the risk sharing situation where, and I'm not necessarily up on all the policy. I think there's people on this call that is, but from my knowledge, I mean, if now owners are potentially liable if someone defaults on their student loan,
Sure.
absolutely that is my responsibility because I want to make sure I'm teaching my students how to pay back their student loan. Also to report, did you lose my mic?
Yes, but I can still hear you.
You
I
got
don't
it
know if it's,
back? Okay, cool.
oh, it's back
Um,
now.
okay, good. Absolutely, you want to be teaching your students why they need to pay back their student loans and why not to default.
Right.
What also, so many people are wanting to go solo. And really, I believe in this industry uniquely, you have to educate on the different career paths because you have 90% of students saying they want to go solo, but they have absolutely no idea the financial implications of that. There are
Right.
pros and cons to everything, and certain people are meant to be solo, and I would say 90% of people are not meant to be solo. They're going to be
Well, when
best
the
suited.
retention rate of solo salons today is about 30%, yeah, maybe it's not great because what even solo salons is seeing is that seasoned licensed pros are taking out whether it's a loan or borrowing money to open up a salon suite, they can't even afford to do it a second year because they
Right.
realize, holy crap, this is more money than I thought it was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I've had we've had several guests on here talk about how important it is to educate your students about this. Let me just say it right now because I know there's a lot of admissions people on here. You are not dream killers. If someone comes in and says they want to own a salon, you cheer them on and say, I can't wait to show up and get a scalp massage. Like you cheer them on. You are not a dream killer, but it is up to education to give them realistic expectations. Of course, you can mention, well, we do have a career services department here and it's going to be great because we have job fairs and maybe that's the path for you, but we're going to open up your eyes to things you never even thought about. You can say
Mhm.
things like that. I'm just, it's not up to you in admissions to sit there and be like, well, let me tell you, that's probably not going to happen for you and it's super expensive. Like we don't do that in admissions, but you do that as an educator.
Yeah.
That is the point, is that we don't need kids opening up salon suites a year after graduating, or even immediately, which a lot of them do, which is bananas to me. So I'm with you. I think financial literacy needs to be taught. What does that look like? Explain what your curriculum teaches.
Yeah, so our curriculum is it's 8 kind of sections or themes around the most important financial topics, right? So the first one is mindset, right? And it sounds really woo, but before we can even talk about taxes, right? Can you imagine if we started with taxes? I mean, we have to talk about what is the mindset. Do they think they're going to grab? Because a lot of times it's just not even on their radar, right? It's not even on their radar, the topic of money. They haven't thought about it. They're an artist, they're a creator. So really understanding, and we find that 80% of students say they've had zero financial related education. So zero going into it. And that's over 6,000 students that we've had data on that have no financial related education, right? So there's some mindset work that needs to start. Then right away, and all these and all based on my mic just went out again. Hang on one
Oh,
second.
we can hear you.
Okay, good. Um, so all of these can be moved based on like the ideal timeline, right? Money in to me is kind of the one of the most important places to look at too, which is how are you actually going to make money in this career path? Whether you are a solopreneur, a business of one, whether
Mhm.
you are an intrapreneur, a business within an existing business, so i.e. a commission driven provider, or an entrepreneur, someone who opens a business with employees, right? That's very different than a solopreneur. And talk about all, the financial elements of those career paths. Also understanding compensation, understanding commission structure, how much you're going to make, all of that good stuff. But mostly money in is about how you're going to produce. 3 is money out. So that's all about budgeting, managing expenses, which is super timely to anybody, but also understanding what a profit and loss statement is from a household standpoint, but also the myths and traps of salon and spa profitability. We see that all the time on the business side. We just did the industry's largest profitability study of salons. We had almost 600 million in annual revenues represented of salons that participated. The average profit, is between 2 to 5% for a business, right? So these are razor thin margins that you're already working on
Ah,
with these businesses. And a lot of times students don't know that. So you got to go into it the right way. Then we talk about money borrowed, which is debt. So how you pay it off, what it is, what it means to take money out, what it means to have a loan. Full lesson on student loans. So a lot of our schools in admissions, they really show that right away. Like they will learn how to pay this student loan back, right? Like actionable, go into your portal. This is when it's gonna, like all of those things.
right.
Um, Next is investing or money saved. It's a huge thing we hear about on the business side. Many salon, spa, med spa owners, the blend of church and state, so to speak, of personal and professional finances is massive. And we see a lot. I believe there's going to be a huge retirement crisis in the industry as well because they're just simply not prepared. So the sooner we can prepare young people, the better. And it's never too late to start. So talking about saving and investing, taxes, full lesson on taxes, full lesson on money plans. So planning for whatever you want, if it's the next trip, if it's to own a business, if it's to provide for your family, building out basic budgets, and then really tying it all together with money success. And so that's the curriculum. It can go up to 40 hours. It can go as low as 12 hours. We have different paths in terms of where it integrates. And we just did a ton of focus groups because we're now in our third year and we're going in and reproducing it in about a month here. So it's going to look different, better, enhanced, have some curriculum specifics based on discipline, but it's really anything you need to know about money.
So, Erin, is this a teach the teacher sort of curriculum where you are training educators to teach it, or is it something that's already built video wise where like kids are going through it, or is it both?
So there's three ways of delivery. You can be entirely self-study, which I would say for any curriculum, that's never ideal to be completely self-study. It is an option. So we do have some schools with lower hours that do the self-study option. It can be entirely classroom-led or educator-led. The key word that I highlight with educators, because a lot of educators are like, oh my God, my finances are a disaster. How am I supposed to teach my
Yeah,
students, right? And it's
right.
really triggering. But we really encourage educators, you're facilitating, right? This is built out so structured with activities, questions, and videos that it's just like press play, facilitate conversation, et cetera. So it can be entirely educator led, or what a lot of schools do is a hybrid model. So a mix of classroom led and then a mix of self study.
Okay. I mean, that sounds amazing. So if someone already has Milady or Pivot Point, is this just
Mhm.
an add-on essentially?
Yeah, it's just it integrates with both providers. So
Okay.
I'm typing in. So the curriculum is called Money EDU, and I just sent our website called Qnity for Schools. If you click the green button, that will go directly to me, and you can
Might have to
schedule a
change it
call.
to everyone. Right now it's set up to,
Oh, sorry.
I went to
Thank you.
voicemail. No, that's okay. It automatically does that for you and me.
Oh, I can't. I actually can't put it in, so you'll have
Okay,
to do
I
it.
can. Let me do it
Cool.
right now.
Yeah. So the curriculum's Money EDU. You can go to qnityforschools.com, and then we can show it to you. Um,
Phenomenal. How
yeah,
many schools are using this right now?
about 200.
Okay.
So about we're in about 200 on a regular basis, and we've had since we started 50,000 students go through the curriculum. And so, there's a lot of things teaching. We're in this for the long haul. Like we are really, this is a mission-driven move into schools for us, right? Like in order to change the trajectory of this industry and really continue to elevate it, which is what we're trying to do on the professional side, is we have to be committed. And so we're already on our third version of this. We're going to be on our fourth coming this fall to make sure how do we really tackle this topic of finance so we can have the public average and the narrative around a career in beauty. You can make 85 grand on average if you work a 40-hour work week, which by the way, most other jobs don't even work close to a 40-hour work week. Well, some many, at least my job, I do not work anywhere close to a 40-hour work week, but many careers don't as well.
So, Erin, why are you so passionate about this? Like, how did you get into this? What does this mean to you?
Yeah. Oh my God. It means so much to me. I mean, I think, from a standpoint of like mission, like and as a mother, like it kills me watching people struggle. Like it really kills me. And I struggled too. So I think, I always share my story and I'm very open about it. So our founder, Tom, who's also my father. We're family owned and operated business. He was a CFO. For those of you who don't know what that means, Chief Financial Officer. He was also a CPA, Certified Public Accountant, right? The most financy you can get, right? So, by all intents and purposes, I grew up with someone who had solid financial education, right? And tried to teach me. But actually, I wouldn't say, from his standpoint, it wasn't really a conversation. Like it could have been, but I don't think he was like your typical CFO where it was like, I'm going to make you do Excel spreadsheets and learn how to invest. It really wasn't part of my education growing up until he left his career and became an 8 location salon owner. So that made a change. And I really heard about a lot of people, how he was trying to change, the 400 people that worked for him, how he was like, how do I help these primarily females see the opportunity in front of them? Then he became so passionate about it. When I was about 16, he sold his shares in that salon group and became an entrepreneur. And our financial situation changed real fast, real quick. Suddenly, the topic of money was pretty constant. Budgeting became a big topic of conversation, not going on vacation, all the things that I think I took for granted. And I really started to see our family get in a different financial situation and a lot of stress that happened between my dad and my mom. So I saw that from like, 16-ish. I always worked, I always had money because I worked myself. I started working at 14.
Mhm.
Then I went to college and then I graduated college. And in college, by the way, totally broke like most college students, right? On a budget, doing what I needed to do, working part time. Then when I was about 22, I joined my dad's company, still very small. And it was extremely financially stressful at about all times. So meanwhile, we're helping all of these business owners who are coming to us, helping them with their creating more sustainable businesses. And the stories that I heard from them were not just about the struggles in business, but the owner struggles with debt and how much risk they took to, and how much the payroll was keeping them up at night. One woman who had 65 employees said that she was living paycheck to paycheck in her bank account and she was living on the edge financially. So seeing all these stories and hearing people
You're
not being able,
young at this point. You're young
I'm
and
very
you're
young,
seeing what would be on paper a very successful person and being
very
like,
young.
crap, they don't
Yep.
have their life together.
Well, and I
Like,
was like, oh, this is kind of smoke and mirrors. It's like you think
sure.
many people you think they have it all figured out, and entrepreneurship is a different ballgame, right? But I remember, and this is kind of the moment that flipped for me. When I was about 25 or 26, I was living in Chicago and the company was doing well, but we were investing and at this time I had joined Qnity before we had Qnity for schools. This was about 15, 10-ish, 10, 11, 12, something like that years ago. And it was kind of a constant battle about, growing and investing funds back into the business. But bottom line, we didn't have enough money to pay me for one pay cycle. And the business that I was living at had or the apartment complex that I was living at in the city of Chicago had a policy. If you missed a payment, you automatically got put into the collections department. One missed patient. So they tried to debit my account, didn't have it. I was out with friends. I came home, had a big eviction notice stamped on my door. And it wasn't, it was an, or I'm sorry, it was an eviction warning, right? So not a notice, but they just did that because I guess it was such a large complex. And that to me, like, I think everybody talks about, their rock bottom or the moment where they're like, if you have a moment. But for me, I was like, I cannot be stressed about this anymore. So I had student loans, paid it all back in about a year, really got on track, just educated myself purely, right? Like I was pretty seasoned on business finance, right? But that doesn't always translate, right? And so what we did is we had so many tools around helping people drive sales and drive income, but how did we apply those to general financial literacy beyond just the business? And so then years later, it was like the best place to start is while someone's in school. So I see too many people struggling and I don't want that for anyone.
And so you got on a budget personally, like you just had a
Oh yeah. I went
budget
on a
every little thing, every
Oh,
minute.
I was neurotic about it. I'll tell you. I mean, I was really, really, I was not making a lot of money at that time, right? Like, and that's, I think, one of the misnomers that people think. It's like, look, there is a real element. If you can't meet your basic needs, like you might need to increase your income. But there's also a big reality of I don't think everyone has an income problem. I think a lot of people have a spending problem or
Yes,
just lack of awareness problem. And so
yes.
for me, yeah, my income was very, very average. But I was making very little. And I just lived off a budget and was real intense about it. And was my quality of life great during that time point? No. No, because I was intense because I was trying to change my future.
Yeah.
Right. And I know you did some things where you got really, really intense about your own finances. And like, it's not fun. It's not fun
No,
to be
you know
intense.
what? It's so temporary when you're younger. And if there's one thing you can tell your students, and my husband and I, we're youth group leaders, and we were actually just telling our kids this last Wednesday. They were all sitting around us, and they were asking us how our trip to Europe was, and we have a pretty great life. Like, we live in a nice house and we travel a lot and we live the life.
Hmm.
Um, and they were asking us while we were like, they're like, how do you guys do this? Like we want to be like you when we grow up. And we told them, we said, you have a choice. After you graduate high school, and of course, even after you graduate college, you can either suffer for a short time so you can enjoy the rest of your life, or you can live your life for a few years and you'll be spending the rest of your life suffering. Because
Hmm.
I look now at my age and I'm surrounded by friends and even colleagues with work and who are much older than me, people I meet at conferences, and they are doing much worse than me financially. And I just thought, that's why. Because y'all were living the life when you were in your 20s and 30s and you were buying the house and you were buying the car and you were going on the vacations. We didn't. We are like that. We always call ourselves the king and queen of delayed gratification. Like
Hmm.
you can have that life for a long period of time if you will suffer for a short period of time.
I
So
100% agree. And
we
I
did not
still,
go on
yeah.
vacations. We didn't do the things.
Yeah, I mean, look, let me give you a perfect example. Like even right now, like we go on vacations, we live a good life too, but we are very, very frugal. And it's like I don't necessarily have, I mean, in this climate everybody's got to be frugal, but like it's funny because my mother-in-law is here, so this is a time sensitive thing. I have a 22-year-old couch. It is hideous. It is so ugly. It is like, and I've had moments where I'm like, we got to do it. But it's like we're going to be moving and things like that. I'm like, normal people would have just bought a new couch. And it's like,
Sure.
I'm gonna buy a new couch. It's just little things like that where it's like, it's so gross. My husband spilled salsa on it like 5 years ago. Like it's like it's
Because it's like once you've
yeah,
lived that life, it is really hard to not live that life. So even though you're doing better now,
yeah,
there's no chance of an eviction notice on your door anytime
yeah,
soon. But it's funny because like once you work that muscle, it just
yeah,
never goes away. Because even now, oh my gosh, Erin, the other day I was looking at Cartier watches. I can afford a Cartier watch.
yeah,
I saw yours and I was like, I want her Cartier watch. Um, I really wanted, and I know yours was gifted to you. You were telling me a really sweet story about it.
yeah.
But Morgan, who I work with, Morgan's like, oh my gosh, just buy the stupid watch. Like you don't have kids, like you make all that money on TikTok. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I ended up buying this watch on the cruise ship for
Oh my,
$200. And
I
I
mean,
was literally like, wow, this is the nicest watch I've ever had. But it's just like, I literally, Erin, I cannot, once you've lived that life, you cannot go back. And I will
yeah.
still, I drive the same car I've been driving for years. I did not get a new
Oh
car making more money. It doesn't matter. Like
no.
living in the same house.
We
Like,
drive we drive a 16-year-old Volvo and like it's like it is old and it's like yeah, we
love it.
don't have to, but I would rather like and that's what I think that's why to me these conversations and when I talk about what schools can do is have these conversations in front of your students because then they're not going to go make the mistakes. We talk all the time about insta profit experts, right? Like everybody's an expert on Instagram. Everybody's talking about this and that and all these things. It's like maybe just think a little bit about who you seek advice from and the people that are living the life I think is one thing like you just got back from Europe. I'm going to Europe and we spend money on vacations, right? Like
Yeah.
and and that's something I did not certainly do back then and I want that for everyone, but I think just really getting clear like do you have a spending problem? Do your students have a spending problem? I just talked about this all the time. Like DoorDash, I'm not kidding you. I'm sure this comes up with all of your students. It's like I feel like a broken record, but this comes up all the time with students and educators that all of their money is going to DoorDash. They have no money, but they spend it on DoorDash. And so they're bouncing paychecks. And
Oh my
you'll
God, Erin, I
see,
thought you were going to say the opposite. I thought you were about to say all my students DoorDash for extra money. You're saying they spend money on DoorDash.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And get this, DoorDash just announced a buy now, pay later program. Yeah, it's
I saw
wild.
that. That's wild. Who
So
is
it's
doing that?
It's Klarna. Klarna's partnering. It's all of these companies. So there's a reason why they do this. And now, yeah, someone can finance their burrito when they are already struggling to put food on the table. But it's also like educating on these realities. Like that is debt, by the way. Like that is doing a buy now, pay later program does impact your financial future. And so really making sure, um,
It's the modern day layaway. Do you remember how people used to put stuff on layaway at like Kmart for Christmas for their kids?
no, I don't even know what that is.
Oh my gosh, I worked at Cracker Barrel back in like 2004, 2005. I'm a waitress, and all the waitresses would put their
Mm,
stuff on layaway where they would and maybe I'm old. Melinda gets me. But you would essentially like shop for all the stuff ahead of time.
yeah,
And you would make payments to Kmart so that like come Christmas, boom, you got all your stuff. And that's just what everyone did. That's what
yeah,
everyone, it was so normal to live a life
yeah.
like that. But I love this conversation, and I think, and people are agreeing in the chat, we need to be talking about stuff like this with
Hmm.
our students and how
Yeah.
you sacrifice when you're young so that you can enjoy your life when you're older and bring in those guest speakers. I have been very vocal about this, Erin. Stop bringing in these all-star freaking speakers that are like, oh, I'm making $200,000 a month at my salon. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And that's it. Like that's the story they're told. You can do this too. And you just have all these kids that are like, yes, that's going to be me. That's going to be me. That's going to be, I'm like, you are setting these people up
For
for,
failure. Yeah.
that's
And
not
major
realistic.
disappointed, major disappointment too. And like another thing too, I always try to be real, like direct in conversations when I go into schools. And I had someone the other day, she was like, it was a student, and I don't remember what school I was at. She was like, I prefer not to live like that, right? Like I prefer to live in abundance, and like I prefer to like, the manifestation thing. And look, I'm all about vision boards and what you want and
Sure.
creating the life that you love. I do a vision board every year, okay? And that doesn't mean that you just ignore the realities of finance and just spend all your money. And just like it's yeah, I mean, I think both you and I could be on a
I
little
mean,
bit of a
literally,
soapbox.
exactly.
Yeah,
And we need to be having these conversations openly with our students, which I don't think we always are. I think
yeah,
sometimes we want to like, we are so afraid that they're going to see those stats about the $16 an hour and all this stuff that like we almost overcompensate for that and talk about how great the career is and how much money they can make. I just wish we were a little more realistic and we could tell them like, yeah, it's going to be hard. And you know what? When you graduate, even if you do pay off your student loans, you still need to be saving your money because
yeah,
life is
yeah. And by the way, not just this career is hard. This career is a huge financial opportunity if they make it what it is. They have a leg up from other 4-year programs, but
yeah.
I don't know if, and I think it's also an element too of like be the type of school of the student you want to create and attract, right? Like if you want a sophisticated student who wants to have career longevity, who wants to get placed, who wants to grow and be, a successful alumni, provide the type of resources that you know is necessary, right? Like nobody wants the students that are coming in and enrolling and then dropping out. But you have to I, I think there is a huge opportunity to really change from the ground up and do this in a way that's really facilitated, right? Because having conversations is one thing that's really important. And it can go real wrong if you have somebody who's like you and I are comfortable having these conversations with money,
Sure.
right? Because we've made changes and
We're
we're in a
open books.
place.
We want people
Yeah.
to learn from us, I think, at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
But
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that there's still a lot of shame and ego. And so it's like you have to, so with the curriculum, it's like it's quite structured in the sense of like, let us facilitate some of these conversations. And then also like, here's the parameters of how you can do this in a way that is productive and received well by students. Because another element that we didn't talk about is there is a lot of trauma around money. Like money trauma, when I ask that
Mhm.
question, there's a lot of people that really identify and it's like this visceral reaction when they talk about the subject, right? So like it's a space that needs to be created in a really loving, empathetic, but educational way because this is a subject like anything else. It's a muscle and you need to learn about it. And by
Yes.
the way, there's a ton of education for free. Students can get it there. You can play videos, there's stuff that you can do for free. So, and I'm the first to say that there's a million resources. And I think our program gives a really great structured option. And really, I mean, we hold your hand in the process. So,
And, one of the things I wanted to end talking about is the additional income sources that we need to be teaching our students about. So
Hmm.
I know we talk about pretty much the major two ones of like, you can go work in a salon or you can work for yourself. Like these are like the options. And of course, there's a bunch of stuff within that. You could freelance on weekends to do, bridal hair and makeup on a
Hmm.
Saturday, but work in a salon throughout the week. Like we talk about that stuff. But we don't always talk about some of the other income sources that students can make money. And you already know what I'm gonna say here,
Oh, I
Erin.
know.
You already know it. All
Hmm.
your students, in case y'all don't know, let me just tell you a little something about Gen Z. They all want to be influencers.
100%.
They want to be influencers. They all have ring lights on their phones. They've been watching YouTube influencers for makeup and hair since they were children. So they want to be those people. It's one of the top reasons people choose beauty school is because they want to be influencers. And so you are doing your students a disservice if you're not teaching them how to do that. I believe that schools are failing students today by not teaching them what they really want to learn. And they want to know how to make money online. So teach them that. Bring in a curriculum, bring in a guest speaker, teach them different ways they can be making money. I am very passionate about TikTok. TikTok Shop has changed my life. It's going to change Erin's one day if she will remain consistent.
Viral post on TikTok. She tried with me. It is a lot of work, I'm telling you. But yes,
Erin, you did it for a while. I
I
feel like
know.
after we shared a pizza at AACS at that restaurant, you were like, I'm going to do this. And you were
I know.
posting. What
I know.
happened?
Honestly, that's a whole topic around influencing. Like, first of all, I don't want to be an influencer. Like, I think some people do. I actually don't want that. I think it's a ton of work. And I think if you find the way you do it, I think is smart, but that's just how you live, right? It's like you find the low, like, you're
Yeah.
about removing the friction and finding, like, okay, this is my niche. I'm going to put, like, to me, it was so much consistency and thought, but take it out from me. For beauty providers, it's so easy. Just post. Well, yeah, Anthony, I didn't want to post my baby. That was the problem. I was like, I don't need my baby to be online.
You don't
But
need your baby, but you just talk about,
right.
I told you to be sharing all of the things you registered for that were stupid, that were a waste of money, that,
Yeah,
the things you should get, like how to balance being a mom and, being an entrepreneur or just whatever. I mean, these are,
totally.
yeah, you don't have to show your baby, but I mean, I just wish, and someone asked me, and this is the number one question I'm asked, by the way, and anytime I tell people this, it's exactly what someone in the comments asked. Let me go back to it. Let me get the exact question. Um, Destiny, what about educators who don't use social media? I understand that. I get it. But your students already are probably they're probably better, obviously, at using
Yeah.
Instagram than your educators. Bring in a guest speaker, and you need to go to your alumni and see who's kind of killing it online, because one of the first things Erin mentioned was building a book of business. You build a book of business today online
Hmm.
a lot of
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of people will find you. Um, I was asking my hairdresser the other day how she grows other than referrals, and she says it's through Instagram. I mean, that is
Hmm.
one of the top ways that people are doing it. So, yeah, social media marketing is kind of the future. And also so funny. Like AI is another, like we talk about how like you won't be replaced by AI, but you know what I did the other day, Erin? I asked Chat GPT, I uploaded a picture of myself and I said, how do I look younger? Obviously, that's all I care about. I mean, Kris
Hi,
Jenner,
Diana, by the way.
anyone else put in the chat who saw Kris Jenner's new facelift? Oh my goodness. It's like, have you seen her? Have you seen her new facelift?
No, no, I haven't. Okay, I have to look at it.
Hey, you need to look it up. She looks literally incredible. So
Hmm.
of course I asked ChatGPT. I'm like, how do I look younger? And it gave me a full haircut. It like uploaded an AI picture of me with a new haircut. And I showed it to my hairdresser, and we're doing it tomorrow. I don't know. I hope I look younger. I mean,
Are you
who
doing
knows?
a bob? What are you doing?
Yeah, yeah.
No, Jen, you're not
Yeah,
doing a
I'm doing a
bob.
bob.
Okay, this is for another conversation. Okay.
Is that awful? I know, but it's the summer bob is back. I don't know what to tell you. It literally told me to bring my hair up, um, and do like a little bit of a layer. Anyway, That all
Oh
you
my
have to
God,
do
I
is
just saw her
upload a
facelift.
picture.
That's wild.
Doesn't she look incredible?
Yeah, that's wild. Okay, Bobs are in. So you
Bobs are
don't
very
listen to
in.
me.
Bobs
Don't
are
listen
very
to me. I don't know anything about. I've still had the same hairstyle for my entire life. So I'm like one of those that says do the same blonde, cut off an inch, you know.
It told me that this is what it gave me. Hold on.
Oh, that's cute. That's not a oh, that would look amazing on you.
What do
Absolutely.
we think? Do we think we do the bob?
Love. I don't consider that a bob. I was thinking Kris Jenner bob. That would look amazing on you.
No, that's more like pixie style, but although her hair is longer now. Yes, Christina Aguilera and Lindsay Lohan's same face procedure. I mean, it looks incredible. All these
Yeah.
people are. So I can't afford that yet, but I'm for sure gonna do the bob. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I
weigh
think
in
that's
on
a
that.
great little way into tasting it. But how did we get onto Kris Jenner? Oh, TikTok. You know what? So I think your point is always looking for opportunity. I do think that's important. Call it a lob. I love that. But there is also a ton of other ways to make money online. So I'm not discoding because
Yeah,
you know much more about and I do agree. Like my nephew wants to be an influencer. He's like on the cusp of Gen Z. That is what they were told. It is like how you get famous now. Look at all the most influential companies right now, by the way. Some of the most influential companies are started and owned by influencers now, right? Like
sure.
take out Apple and all like the
Yeah.
big ones. But there's a lot of really popular companies by influencers. So influence is power. There's no question about that. And for those people maybe who are not in the Gen Z category, educators or 28 kind of plus and millennial who don't want to do that, have you guys heard? Like, there's so many companies. Something that even I'm going to do. I don't know when I'm going to have the time to do this, but you can rent your baby equipment. Have you heard about this? It's like
No.
you literally rent your baby equipment. So I have a snoo, for example. It's a very expensive thing. It rents for like $70 a day. So I just rent it out. I'm like, then I'm just so I think resourcefulness, creativity, finding other ways
That's
of
a
like,
TikTok, Erin. Make a TikTok about that.
okay,
Like,
fine.
are you kidding me?
Okay. All right. I will, I need to find a way. Like, I think to do it so it doesn't feel like it creates so much, so it doesn't feel so hard. And I think same for students too, right? Like, how do you, and you could teach this maybe, Jen, like, how do you post your work? I think for hairstylists, it's easy. Or like SDs, like, just post work that you're doing. You're going to absolutely
Sure.
choose someone with more work than someone with no profile, right? For me, I'm like, you know, I have to talk, so it's harder
I
because I
know,
have to
but
think
your
about it.
hook, I'm like, I can already see your hook. Like you can say, I made $70 yesterday by renting this thing out for 24
Yeah,
hours. That's your hook. Everyone's gonna be like, what? What are you talking
yeah.
about? Like, I'm amazed by that. What can I rent out?
I know
That's
that's
a
what I'm
great idea.
saying. Look at all your stuff. What can you sell? What can you rent? What are other ways that you can make money while you sleep, right? Like
Yeah.
online and
Exactly.
influencing is certainly one of them, but make no it's a lot of work. Like it is not an easy job. I think they actually you have to be doing your work. I mean, in this day and age, I do think for students like it's not an option to not post your work on social media. You just simply
Right.
have to, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, teaching these things and teaching even about like, well, like we said, DoorDash, your students can DoorDash in the evenings
I
if they're
love
doing,
Jen. She's like, "Oh yeah, good. Your students are door dashing." I'm like,
they're
"No."
like, no, they're taking out loans to DoorDash,
Yeah.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's crazy. Well, listen, we're at the end.
Oh
Erin,
no.
this was
Okay.
fun.
It's
I
always
mean, it
too
felt like we were just hanging out. Like
I
this is what
know.
this is.
I know.
I hope to see you'll be at AACS. Where else can people find you in in-person events this year? You'll be at NACAS?
Yes, I will be at we'll be at NACAS. I will be at I'm putting my Instagram. I do post on Instagram. I just don't do TikTok. So oh, Jen, can you share that? I'm
Yep,
just
I will.
posting to and we do have a webinar for students. Can I share that, Jen, that
Yep.
we have coming up? I think Lisa's in here. I just had it up. It's
So
called
people
Books.
can live stream this in like their classrooms, this webinar, or how does it work?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, Jen, I'm posting this link. This is called Booked and Busy. Oh, that's just the link, but there's also more information on it. Lisa, if you're in here still, if you can post the actual proper link. But that's where we're teaching students how to get to their first 100K through building a book of business. So we teach them really tactical ways with scripts on asking for referrals, things like that. So that's a great way. We're doing that on June 10th. So anyone on here, all of your students can attend. It's free. We're trying to do more education like that too. So DM me on Instagram, stay connected with us. And then also qnityforschools.com is where you can learn about the curriculum.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Erin, for being our guest today. Thank you all to our BSD community. We love that you guys all jumped on today, and we will see you guys next month. Bye,
Thanks,
y'all.
Jen. Thanks, everyone.